Welcome to Transformative Principal, where I help you stop putting out fires and start leading. I am your host, Jethro Jones. You can follow me on Twitter at Jethro Jones. Welcome to Transformative Principal. I'm your host, Jethro Jones. You can find me on all the socials at Jethro Jones. And I am so excited to have on the program today Jennifer Jennings. She's a growth marketing manager at Rise Vision, the leading digital signage software for K-12 schools. She has a keen understanding of the education landscape, which we'll talk about today. And she's passionate about leveraging technology to enhance school communication, safety measures, and the overall school atmosphere. She's worked closely with schools to understand their unique challenges and develop customized solutions. And our expertise lies in identifying communication gaps, creating positive school culture, and implementing strategies to increase building security. We're going to have a great conversation. Jennifer, welcome to the program today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, so what's real valuable about what we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, so my biggest takeaway and the thing I'm most excited about is just empowering schools and principals to take more photos of their students and to share all of those great things that are happening in your school, share them with your school community and share them with the community that's supporting you outside of the school as well.
Yeah, very good. I think for me, one of the big takeaways was how we can identify the strengths that are within our school already and use those strengths to help people live up to their potential and do amazing things that they might not have been able to do otherwise. So that's my big takeaway. We talk about a lot of stuff though, and you give 4 really great tips for how to set up a communication plan that's manageable and like actually able to be implemented. That's not like this big, huge initiative that's overwhelming. So we're going to get to the interview with Jennifer here on Transformative Principal on the B Podcast Network in just a moment. Well, Jennifer, I think the good place to start is talking about why communication is so important. And we're talking school to community communication, not just school only to patron communication, because you can't just talk to the people who attend your school anymore. Maybe we start there. Why can you not just talk to the families that attend your school?
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about it offline, but there's less students being enrolled in schools nowadays. In some cases, it's a million students who aren't making it into the school system, and whether that's people are choosing not to have kids, so declining birth rates is a real thing. People choosing to have kids later in life, people taking their kids and traveling and doing online schooling, and so they're not in the public school system. And then, of course, people are opting to homeschool their kids. There's a lot of big feelings happening and people are choosing just not to to homeschool them. So part of having that communication is, you do need to be communicating and sharing all of those great things that your school is doing with that community, to get their buy-in, but also just to showcase what your school is doing to attract those people who are having kids and getting them to enroll in your school district, but then also stay in that school district and in your program for the duration of their education. They have 12 years of schooling, and how do you keep them in there? And it's by showcasing what your school is doing and all those amazing day-to-day things and sharing it with that community.
Yeah, so people are so saturated with content coming at them all the time. How do schools communicate this effectively so that people actually know what's going on? For example, our all the school districts here in Eastern Washington did a bond this year on the ballot, and all of them failed, which means that they were planning on getting all this money to spend on capital improvements and all these different things, and they all failed. And what's interesting is that that is more than just like one subset of people thinking this wasn't a good idea. This was like a whole region saying something, and we can speculate as to what they were saying, but what they were essentially saying is we don't think that you should get this extra money for any number of reasons. But how does that communication change people's perspectives, and what can schools do to get people to pay attention to what they're doing?
Yeah, it's it's definitely not a question that we can just answer and be like, "Oh, this
Here's the
is the
magic
solution."
solution.
It's not. Yeah, here's the magic sauce and
Well,
solution for you. But I mean, if you're an entire region was like, yeah, no, we don't think that you should be getting that money, it's definitely a sign that there's a breakdown in the communication. I think that the school's communication, it really needs to, it's if it's part of a bigger picture, and you need to have a very of an overall communication plan that you're working towards, and that you're working. And also you need to be looking at the different sources that you're putting out, or that the different communication channels that you're putting out, but making sure that your message is consistent, that you have consistent branding, I think is really important, so that people become, they know what they're going to be expecting from you in terms of quality of brand of content, and just showcasing your brand at that school in everything that you do. But just hitting those main communication points, like you need to be communicating within your school. So obviously with your students, with your staff, with your parents, and making those people who are already coming to your school champions for your school and your school district. When you're communicating with potential families during an open house or during an event, you're having content that's that content that's high quality, that's branded, that showcases your school in the best light, whether you're doing that, on social media, or you're doing that as part of your digital signage, or if people are still sending out flyers, like having that content just be showcasing your school in the best light, and making it, all of the great things that you're doing, show people that. But I think the other thing is, the caveat to that is, if you're putting out a ton of content and a ton of communications, you don't want to just bombard people and have it be overwhelming, or have that information get lost. So making sure that you're focusing on the most important messages, and making it digestible. So you're not having like a 2-page newsletter, sending that out and expecting people to go through all of that information. They're not. It's a digital world, and our attention span is very low, and it's rapidly declining every year. So you having that communication that people are going to be able to consume quickly, with the most important information, or the most important messaging.
yeah, I that that's really fascinating. You said a lot there, so I want to talk about a little bit of it. One of them is the idea of consistent branding and a consistent message. And that's a hard thing for schools to do because there's typically so much going on and they're so busy. It's really difficult to like narrow in and focus on that kind of thing. Can you share some examples of how schools have used Rise Vision specifically, or other strategies to enhance their communication, not just with their patrons, but also with their community on a larger scale?
Yes. Yeah, I know I said a lot of information and I'm like, be succinct and be clear, and I'm just bombarding you. But I do have a couple of really great examples. So I talk to schools all the time. And they're all doing great things. My one example though about how you're using consistent and good branding is New Prague in Minnesota. They have got it dialed down in terms of putting out on brand content. So when they're putting out content on their social media, on their website, on their digital signage, it's all branded very beautifully. So they do video content, kind of showcasing the New Prague way. That's what they call it.
Mm.
And this New Prague way is basically the motto that they live by in that community, or that school community. And it's showcasing all of those great things that their school is doing, but under the umbrella of the New Prague way. So that is one example. Their video content has their colors, the logo, it's consistent. Every video that they put out is not necessarily the exact same, but there's certain elements that they thread through, so that it's easily recognizable. Same with their social media, same with their digital signage content. They're using those brand elements to make it all very consistent. And then all of their messaging is something having to do with the New Proud Way, which is their guiding message.
And so while you were talking, I just looked up their New Prague High School in Minnesota, looking at their carousel on their front page. All of the images on there, they all have a consistent color scheme to them, which is just one aspect of that branding. The fonts are not necessarily the same, the graphics are not necessarily the same, but the colors are, and so they're starting in the right direction of being able to have this is who we are. And it's interesting because so many times we don't think about that. And what's interesting is when you don't, then people don't know that it's coming from your school. People don't know that it's your content, and so somebody could put something out there that says something different. And the other interesting thing about this is that their average school review on Google is 1.8 stars, which is terrible. But what's so fascinating is that I imagine that those kids are or adults are upset about something, and so they just go and trash the school, which happens, right? Those are real things, and you have to recognize that those things can happen as a school leader. You have to recognize that you can't control what people say about you on Google, but you can control how you project yourself, and having a consistent, clear brand identity and message and all that does help. Now, your specialty is in digital signage. So, how does this translate over to the digital signage area, and why does that matter when so much of what we do is online?
Yeah. Well, I mean, digital signage is partly online. That can be part of your overall online and communication strategy. So, digital signage is it's a great way for schools to just improve their overall communication, fostering that positive school culture and increasing the safety and security within the buildings. But in terms of communication and enhancing that within the school community, I mean, I have so many examples, but one of my favorite examples is Saline in Saline area schools in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I feel like they have really just done a great job overall with their digital signage and their communication. And another one is Cannon Falls. What they're doing is they're sharing information about school events, and they're having an increase in those events or in the attendance of those events. So more students are aware of what's going on. So they're attending more after school clubs, sporting events, soccer tryouts, whatever the case is, they're just being more engaged with their communities and within enough schools. So that's a great way to make to enhance that the communication. Other ways that you can use it to talk to your school is during after school events. So lots of schools groups can come in, they can rent those facilities after hours, or they're doing a fundraiser, or they're doing a regional event. Whatever the case is, those facilities are being used. So digital signage is a way that you can communicate with those people who are in your building by showcasing, while you're here and you're attending Odyssey of the Minds, and by the way, this is our event schedule for the week. You have another slideshow of here's the great thing that our school is doing. Here's the science club doing these great things. So you're slipping in those messages and showcasing the great things that your school is doing so your community sees it while they're in your building. And so I think that's a couple of examples that answer that question.
One of the things that I did as an assistant principal is we wanted to showcase the great things that our students were doing. And so we wanted to take pictures of kids doing great things, and then we wanted to post those for people to see easily. And I bring this example up because this was one of the clearest, maybe not clearest, one of the most commented on things that we did, where anybody who came into the building and saw this TV in the corner that had a slideshow of kids doing great things at our school, everybody loved it. The parents loved watching it and seeing when their kids would show up. The students loved watching it and seeing when they would show up. The teachers loved it because it reminded them, like, oh, here's some good stuff that we're doing. And I cannot tell you, Jennifer, how difficult it was for me to get this thing to actually work and display a slideshow of what we were doing in a way that was easy for me to manage. And I went through a lot of different iterations to make it work. And that technology piece, I mean, this was back in 2011 or so. The technology just was not there yet for it to happen. And one of the things that you do is you make it easy for people to put this signage up on a TV, on their anywhere in their school. And like you were just talking about, when other events are happening in your school, you can roll out this TV and have displays of what's coming up or what else people can do at the school and how it serves the community. And it was just so difficult to do that I'm pretty sure when I left, nobody could continue doing it anymore because I was the only one who knew how to do it, which is just a terrible way to do things and not helpful for anyone, to be honest. So what are your thoughts about that kind of stuff now with the tools that you have?
Yeah, I mean, things were definitely different 5, 10 years ago, but now I think it's e easier than ever, I wanna say, to have digital signage in your school. And now, I mean, if you have with the products and the media players that are out there right now, depending on how invested and how much time, how much bandwidth whoever has that's gonna champion the project, there's an option for you. So if you're, wanting to have a couple of displays, in the front of a school to welcome people or for parent drop or like when parents are hanging out waiting for their kids, you have one, two, three displays getting started. That's great. You can simply, in most cases, you're putting up a TV that's going to go in your hallway. You're going to plug it in, you're going to connect it to the Wi-Fi, which you already have, and you're going to get a media player and you're going to hook it up into that back of the TV. Depending on the media player, it might just hook up with a USB or an HDMI, and I mean that's it. In a lot of cases, that media player is going to connect to the Wi-Fi, and you're going to be off and running with digital signage. Obviously, with a product with like Rise Vision, you're going to be able to manage all of your digital signage from one place. You're going to get a notification if somebody turns off your TV, if the media player goes down, and then you're able to create all of that content for that display and schedule it. We have a lot of schools who, they're using Rise Vision and they have teachers or the secretary or whoever is able to put content into a Google slideshow or a Google Doc, and then they stream that content that way. So you can really break it out and delegate to who's going to be involved, and that makes managing the content easier as well. But I think one of the things that we run into or that we hear from people is if it's not easy, like you said, nobody's going to continue doing it. So if it's just a USB stick plugged into the back of a TV and somebody has to go and get that USB stick, take the new presentation, upload it onto there, go and walk around and plug all those USB sticks, has a keyboard that they have to carry around and plug into the TV to get that going. It's not going to be easier, or it's not going to be something that you do consistently because it's inconvenient. So it needs to be super simple.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely does, and that's one of the keys is making it simple. When it can be a simple solution, then people can do the things that they need to do with it. So
Yeah.
I did find that blog post. So I'll put it in the show notes about how I used Apple TV as a motivator in our school. And again, this was like a complicated, convoluted setup. Even this
Yeah.
piece is way easier now, but there are so many different things that when you have the right systems in place that simplify things so that it's easy for anybody from anywhere to address it, then and manage it, then it becomes much more likely that people are going to do something. And this goes back to what we were talking about before about having a bigger vision about your communication and having it be part of an overall communication plan and not just, a one off thing or, oh, we've got something coming up this week. We better make a flyer about it. And it's like, no, we need to have like ideas of how we communicate these things on a regular basis. Can you speak to that overall communication plan and what's essential there for what you're trying to do in a school?
Yeah, I think adding digital signage just needs to become part of your school's existing communication strategy. So, the biggest thing I would say is you need to start it in a small and manageable way. When social media first came out and Facebook first became a thing for schools and an avenue for them to communicate, not everybody was running out and posting consistently on Facebook and using it as a communication tool. Now, a lot of school districts have a communications person, they have a social media manager. There's somebody who's in charge of that entire channel, but it didn't just start overnight as a huge production. So I think that's the first thing is digital signage. Start small, scale it up as you go, as it starts to work, as you start to see things happening. But start small. You don't have to have 100 displays in your first go around. Is that great? Sure, but it's not necessarily feasible. But I think a couple of pointers or best practices that I would say is set up your system properly so that you can delegate or you can delegate roles to other departments. Have different champions in there or different people who are creating content and managing it. We see a lot of schools who, the tech director manages the software or sorry, the hardware. So keeps the media players updated, make sure that the TVs are working, and if they need to be replaced, replaces them. But then they have maybe a teacher or a communications person who manages the content, and maybe the secretary or different people get involved and help source content.
Mhm.
Second is making it part of your weekly routine. So it can't just be something that, oh, we're having an event, we're just going to put up a presentation. It needs to be something that you're using consistently. And when it's part of the weekly routine, or depending on your situation, maybe you're going to have it bi-weekly or monthly, whatever the case is, have it be part of the routine now and it be consistent. Because it's not going to be successful if you're having these displays that have the same content all the time. People are just going to ignore them. It's just
Exactly.
going to become like a bulletin board. Yeah, people are going to ignore it. That's a real thing. It's the same thing when you drive home every day and you don't notice something new because it's just the same stuff all the time. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, when did they open the Starbucks? I take this road every day and I've never seen it. I think get people involved who are excited. I think that's one really important thing is if you just dump this on somebody's desk who's not going to be excited about it, it's going to become a chore and nobody's going to want to do it. You can't give social media to somebody who doesn't like social media.
Yeah.
Give your digital signage to somebody who's going to be excited about it. Get students involved, have a student intern. Just get somebody who wants to do it involved so it's not a burden.
So you gave four great tips there. Start in a small, manageable way. Set up your system so you can delegate properly. Make it a part of your weekly routine, and then involve the people who are excited about it. And to that last piece, what I talk about all the time on this show is find people who have their strengths and let them flourish in their strengths. They will be happier. You'll be happier, and the quality of whatever is created will be so much better. And to be honest, if you don't have a teacher who's interested in this, that can be one of the things that you start looking for when you hire someone for any other position is who can we find that would love to do this as part of their job? And let me tell you, there are so many things that I went above and beyond in my job for just because I enjoyed doing it and it was fun. And that people couldn't have paid me any more to do those things. Like I would have taken the money, sure. But like if they said you still have to do this, but we're not paying you to do that anymore, I still would have done it because I enjoyed it. And like taking those pictures and figuring out how to put those on our TV was so meaningful and valuable to me that I did it and I spent tons of extra time on it because I really was excited about it. And like that is a key piece that we often miss. We need to find people's strengths and let them flourish in their strengths. That is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
As we close, my last question every time is what is one thing that a principal can do this week to be a transformative leader like you? And this is one thing. This isn't five things. This is what's the one thing that someone can do, the action they can take to move forward in what we've been talking about. Where should they start?
That's a tough. It's a big question to just have one thing.
Yeah,
Uh,
intentionally so.
one thing. I think I'm just gonna echo what you said. Like the biggest transformation that you're gonna be able to make is to understand the people that you work with, understand what makes them tick and what fills their cup in a work sense or in a workplace setting, and make it so that they can do those things. If you have a teacher who loves design, or you have not even a teacher, let's say you have a media specialist or you have a secretary
Yeah,
who loves
or a
graphic
paraprofessional.
design. Yeah, who loves graphic design, get them involved in creating that kind of content. You have somebody who loves to take photos, a teacher who loves to take photos or has a great camera, get them involved and start taking more photos. Just find what people really enjoy doing and facilitate getting them to be able to do those things.
Yeah, I would say pretty much all schools out already, right? Especially when this comes out.
Yeah.
We're recording into May, so a lot of schools are already out. By the time you hear this, school's out and it's summertime. Here's what I would say: make a plan to find someone. If it's not you as the principal, find someone who can go take a bunch of pictures of your kids with a high quality camera, not just the phone camera, but like a good DSLR camera, someone who cares about that, and task that person with taking like 5 new pictures every day of kids doing something, and make time for them to do it, of kids doing something positive and good, and assign that person to do that, and then start collecting this catalog of pictures of kids doing great things in your school. And then like that's it. That's all you got to do. But here's the vision. So I'm not saying do something else. Just find that person and have them take pictures. The vision of it though is that you start displaying those pictures however you can. Maybe that's on your digital signage, maybe you actually print them out and hang them up on the walls. Whatever it is, get those pictures out there and you will see how quickly, when they're high quality, nicely composed pictures, what a difference it makes for all of the teachers, all the students, all the parents who come into your school when they see those things happening. And it's incredible. So that would be
Mhm.
my suggestion based on what we've talked about. Really good stuff.
Yeah.
Jennifer, how do people connect with you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, Jennifer Jennings, and so we can connect there for sure. That would be the best spot. I'm not on Twitter or anything like that. I'm not on Facebook anymore. So LinkedIn, love to connect there. Love to hear about what's going on in ed tech. Love to talk about books and reading and yeah, communications in the schools. Will just love it.
Excellent. Well, thank you so
Mhm.
much, Jennifer, for being here as part of Transformative Principal. Great to chat with you and great to go through all this stuff with you today. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.